Captain Forrest here. In today's video, I'm going to be going over both these combatants to see who would win more often not in an inverse situation, Cyclops versus Gambit. If you guys are new to my channel, please leave a like, comment down below, and of course subscribe for further content. So anyway, I'm going to pretty much break this fight down. I'm going to summarize Cyclops' feats, then move on and talk about Gambit, and then give my overall thoughts near the end of the video on who I think wins more often not in an inverse situation. So for the physical attack potency portion for Cyclops, Cyclops easily ranges around small city level to city level plus ranges of attack potency, so easily Cyclops has physically damaged Wolverine. He's also taken hits from Wolverine as well. This very same Wolverine is shown to physically damage Deadpool. Deadpool himself took a blast from a satellite which was calced at city level. So I will leave the calcs on the screen so you guys can see them. So some pretty nice scaling for Cyclops in terms of like the physical department. Wolverine has his own direct mountain level feat where he was able to tank an explosion which was calced around mountain level. Big shoutouts to Crimbus for calcing this, so you can even get Wolverine to the mountain level ranges of attack potency. Now as for the potency behind Cyclops' optic blast, it does range, so from the low to mid frequencies it can easily reach the city to mountain level regions of attack potency. His lower to mid frequencies can level mountains pretty casually, and he can also power up a city with just his energy from the optic blast, which is pretty impressive. Now as for Cyclops' full powered optic blast, it is shown to have higher scaling and potency in comparison to his weaker beams. So as for low end feats for his full powered optic blast, it was stated to be able to rip a small planet in half. So we've got some planetary scaling at least for his optic blast, his full powered version. Now for his mid to higher end blasts of scaling, it was able to push back and burn Green Scar Hulk's skin. His full powered optic blast can also hurt Classic Hulk. This has also been hinted about his full powered optic blast being able to definitely hang out with the Herald Tears. It's even stated that it could, potentially even rival that of Thor, Hulk, some other characters too, but those are just statements. It all comes down to feats as well, so depends on your interpretation. But I have more things to go over and more feats to cover for the optic blast, the full powered at least. So there's some more showings for his full powered optic blast. It's been shown that he was able to press Jean Grey's PSI barriers, as she even notes that she was literally using all her strength to keep the barrier up to prevent the full powered optic blast from completely vaporizing her and Wolverine and other characters who she was trying to protect around her barrier. There was another occasion where an avatar of Dormammu got lit up by the full powered optic blast. So overall, his low to mid frequencies of optic blasts can reach at least the city to mountain plus potentially even higher ranges of attack potency, and his full powered optic blast would range from the low ends of planetary ranges to Altiversal plus, high Altiversal plus, to even boundless. Depending on arguments you use and based on what you find more consistent, it could be argued that the full powered optic blast at its absolute peak, full peak, can even be argued extraversal tears, but obviously that is a very big stretch. Consistently, it's fine to say altiversal. It's definitely as the terms I like to use, mid creation level at least. It definitely has the capacity to hurt the heavy hitters when Cyclops is not suppressing the potency behind his optic blast. So that's going to round up optic blast and the potency and the AP portion. I'm going to go ahead and talk about speed. Now as for speed, Cyclops is easily faster than light plus. He can react to Wolverine, who's able to react to Cyclops' optic blast. This feat was calced at 2 times the speed of light. Credits to Hellfire Productions for this calculation. Now there's higher calcs you can use. You can also use the 9 times calc for the speed of light, which was like Spidey tiers, characters who can react to that degree of speed. So you can take it higher in the calculations of the FTL proportion. So regardless of how you slice the FTL scaling and how high you have him in the calcs of the quantification, regardless, Cyclops is FTL pretty comfortably. He's pretty fast. So that's going to round up the speed. I'm going to go ahead and move on and talk about a bit of Cyclops and how he works in character, his mutant powers and all that great jazz. So Cyclops, he can control the potency of his optic blast. He can fire at a low frequency, a mild frequency, and a full powered one, which is more amplified and destructive, but it makes him a bit tired. Cyclops can also increase the range and the radius of his optic blast to create a widespread to tag multiple enemies, and he can perform an area of effect with a full powered optic blast if need be. Cyclops can also use his Optic Blast as a shield to spread out his Optic Blast to cancel out 2 beams that were fired from Grotesque's gem. Cyclops' Optic Blast can disintegrate objects. It's even stated that he has the range advantage in most situations, as the Optic Blast can reach around 270 plus meters, which is pretty far. That's very impressive. His blasts can also blind you if you're too close to him. He can also BFR people and objects by blasting the ground, causing the force back from the beam to blast you away. Cyclops can also deflect objects with his Optic Blast, and it's also been stated by Beast that Cyclops is the master of the optic arts. And Jean notes that the X-Men have perfected their powers, which is very impressive for Cyclops in terms of skill. He's very skilled with his mutant ability. He's an absolute master at it. Cyclops has demonstrated a ton of remarkable accuracy feats and skill with his Optic Blast, such as ricocheting his opponent's blast to take out his foes. He can also split his beams to pressure and tag multiple opponents. Cyclops is able to skillfully disarm his opponents with his Optic Blast. He did it to Thor, causing Mjolnir to bounce out of his hand and clap Iron Man in the head. And he's able to literally tag an airborne foe by ricocheting his shot from another person. And even when Magneto reflected the blast from Cyclops, it still tags him. So Cyclops is just that many steps ahead of his opponents, which is very impressive. And Cyclops can also position his Optic Blast to hit things on a microscopic level, and he can also use his Optic Blast tactically to get his foes off guard by blasting Machine behind Grotesque, which blows up and tags him. Cyclops can also use his Optic Blast to launch himself away from harm's way, and he can also use his Optic Blast like telekinesis too. And constantly, Cyclops is improving his Optic Blast against moving targets per week by 4%. Cyclops can also propel himself from the ground. He's demonstrated really masterful control with his Optic Blast, and his pinpoint precision is so insane. He was able to precisely shoot through a small crack into the ruby armor, causing it to ricochet and hit the guy wearing it, despite the fact that the ruby armor completely nullifies his Optic Blast. And even while drunk, Cyclops' accuracy is still on par. It's still good. He's still able to tag a glass ball in the air. Cyclops will target vital areas with his Optic Blast, so he will target vulnerable areas. He also has info analysis in his own right, which I'll talk more about. Cyclops can also blast a hole in the ground, cause you to fall. He made Juggernaut fall into the ground as well. He's also shown incredible acrobatics along with impressive accuracy skills with Optic Blast. He also notes that his Optic Blast gets stronger over the years, so he can use his Optic Blast for longer. So let's move on to Cyclops' gear. Now, if Cyclops cannot physically activate his visor, Cyclops can activate a button on his glove, which opens up his visor, allowing him to shoot out his Optic Blast. He also carries some ruby quartz contact lenses in emergencies, and if his visor is stolen or compromised, he also carries a pair of ruby quartz glasses to help control and regulate his Optic Blast. Cyclops is very smart, very strategic, and very tactical in combat. Cyclops is always analyzing and observing his opponent's power and capabilities, while at the same time calculating and coming up with ways to defeat them in combat. Cyclops also has precognition. He's able to stay a step ahead of a dinosaur, and he can also operate on instincts too. Jean and Wolverine have noted that Cyclops remains calm and stoic and never panics in tough situations. So he's a very strong leader, has great leadership skills, and he's a very competent fighter. So in order to determine how strong Gambit is, we must address some of his feats and some of his fights. So Gambit has shown to physically hurt Wolverine with his bow staff, and Gambit has shown with his kinetic energy to be capable of damaging the likes of Captain America, Deadpool, and Moon Knight, and he's also shown to one-shot Sabretooth with his kinetic cards too. This is all impressive because characters like Deadpool have shown to take a blast from a satellite which was couched around city level. Wolverine also has his own direct feat of taking an explosion which was couched around the mountain level ranges of attack potency, and Gambit would scale to all of these ranges. Now as for speed, Gambit would also scale to the FTL ranges of speed. Gambit has feats of reacting to a suppressed Spider-Man in combat. He's dodged Iron Man's repulsor beams, which Iron Man notes that Gambit moves faster than his targeting systems, and Gambit has also intercepted Daredevil's Billy Club and has gone toe-to-toe with him in combat. Now there is a calc done by Korin of Spider-Man reacting to lasers point blank, and this was a suppressed Spider-Man, by the way, and this was calced around the 9.3 times the speed of light, aka FTL, so pretty much a lot of the street tiers scale to this. Now as for Daredevil himself, he's shown to detect a nanosecond pause, and nanoseconds is measured to move at the speed of light, and Gambit would scale to this due to his fights and his reaction time, which is very impressive. Now that's it for stats. Let's talk about Gambit's powers and abilities. Now Gambit's mutant power allows him to take the potential energy stored in an object and convert it into kinetic energy via molecular acceleration, which charges up the item or person he has come into contact with, which he can cause the charged object to explode. Now this sounds cool on paper, but how can Gambit pull this off against opponents who are far away from him? It's quite simple. Gambit carries his trusty deck of cards, which are the perfect conduits and the perfect objects to use as he charges his cards and throws them at fast speeds as they detonate upon impact. Gambit has shown to charge up Deadpool's body and throw him, which causes him to explode. He can charge up opponents' clothing and with a little impact causes it to explode. He's charged up enemies' weapons and he's used it against them, such as the time he charged up Captain America's shield with kinetic energy and threw it at him. There is more to Gambit's kinetic energy than what you are led to believe. It's not only used for blowing up things or people, it has many uses. He can amplify his staff and weapons with kinetic energy to deal more damage. Gambit's used his kinetic energy to charge up and use one of Iron Man's suits with kinetic energy, and due to the kinetic energy constantly flowing through Gambit's body, the energy grants him superhuman strength, agility, and fast reflexes. This also grants Gambit telepathic resistance due to his biokinetic energy surging through his body. Charles himself, back in the classic days, even had trouble trying to get into Gambit's mind, as Gambit's thoughts move faster than Quicksilver. Gambit was even able to kick Psylocke out of his mind, which is very impressive. Now lastly, Gambit is a very skilled combatant in combat, and when it comes to accuracy, he is second to none. Gambit is a master of savate. He is shown to accurately throw his kinetic cards to cut a millimeter wire on an explosive device from 50 meters away. Gambit is able to accurately hit 3 enemies in the head with his kinetic cards, and Gambit is able to hit his shackles by throwing charged matter from his mouth. Gambit is also shown to accurately throw his staff inside a gunman's barrel, and Gambit is one of the most skilled thieves in 616. He has underwent intense training, combat, and missions ever since he was a teenager, and only continues to get better. He's broken into Iron Man's penthouse and hacked and stole one of his suits. He's stolen Hawkeye's Avenger ID. He's able to also quickly memorize blueprints while committing a heist. So that's going to wrap up Gambit. I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts on who I think wins more often than not in an inverse situation. So looking at both these combatants and what they bring to the table is going to pretty much come down to skill, how they're able to utilize their mutant powers, and who would edge out and who would be the superior mutant in this fight. Now Cyclops, with his optic blast, he's an absolute master at his ability, and when we compare the accuracy feats of both Gambit and Cyclops, unfortunately Gambit kind of comes out short when it comes to the accuracy department. Cyclops just has way better accuracy feats. He has a lot in his repertoire. He's been able to hit things a lot smaller than just a small little millimeter wire. He's hit things like literally on a microscopic level, so he can literally tag things very small with his optic blast, and his accuracy is absolutely ridiculous. His ricochets, being able to predict his opponents, pretty much stay a step ahead of them due to his leadership and his skills and his tactics in combat. So he's been able to finesse his opponents into making them reflect back the optic blast, knowing full well it will hit them again. So he's extremely versatile and flexible when it comes to his optic blast and how to utilize it in combat. He uses the whole field as a weapon and uses the terrain to his advantage, and I think Cyclops is able to utilize this more to his advantage in comparison to Gambit, where Gambit is, yes, he's very skilled when it comes to his throwing cards and charging up things and throwing it at his opponent with a bit more direct accuracy. However, Cyclops would be able to pretty much dispatch of those, especially if Gambit starts throwing multiple cards. Cyclops is able to literally just split his beams or perform a widespread to remove the threat. When it comes to AP and speed, I'd say they're pretty relative. However, when it comes to Cyclops, he'd be able to deal with Gambit very easily. hit dispatch of him with his optic blast and his shenanigans. So more often not, when it comes to the superior mutant and who would win more often not in an inverse situation, I gotta give this to Cyclops. Just vastly better, a lot more skilled in comparison to Gambit, and the optic blast is no joke. So even if we was to take it a little bit out of character, Cyclops could easily just take out Gambit with a wide spread with an AoE if he wanted to. That's if it got really serious. However, I don't think it needs to get to that point. I think Cyclops is just his standard low frequency and his trick shots and being able to take out characters, you know, in situations where he's outnumbered, or even against characters who are, you know, a lot more threatening than others. He's been able to deal with those situations, and Gambit is no different. And I don't really see any way for Gambit to kind of use the situation to his advantage, just due to the difference in skill. And Gambit, a lot of his tricks aren't going to really be of any use to him, just due to Cyclops being able to debunk them. So I'm going to give victory to Cyclops. I'd say like low, maybe mid difficulty, because Gambit, you know, he's okay. I don't think he's going to get completely murked that fast. It's definitely going to be kind of competitive. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Guys, who enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and of course subscribe for further content. It's been real. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.